Beyond the fence, leveraging fraud prevention as a competitive edge.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paul Foster, and I'm proud to be here today to present this panel to you. First of all, very quickly, do you want to give a quick update of yourselves? Do you want to start first, Troy?
Yeah, I can start with it. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Troy, based in Singapore. So I lead the growth and expansion of the SEON in the APAC region. Good to meet you all.
Kristina?
Hello, everyone. So I'm Kristina, Senior Business Development Manager of SOFTSWISS, a cutting-edge software provider in this industry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vishal. I represent LexisNexis Solutions, and I lead the AML solution portfolio for the region based in Singapore.
Thank you very much. So we've got a lot of experience, and we're going to rattle through a few questions that we think you'll all appreciate. So first of all, let's start with a pretty standard high-level question. And what we should be talking about here is how do we align anti-fraud, AML, and the key aspects of compliance in today's world where, you know, everybody's getting smarter, so we have to. How do you find that?
Yeah, Sorry? I can start with it. So, I mean, in fact, now we are at the iGaming sectors, right? So we talk about the sector itself. So now we are at the very crossroad junctions. So the industry is growing very well, remarkably. So we're going to be reaching like 107 billion this year. But at the same time, the rise and challenges with the fraud, compliance tactics, everything's out there as well, right? So to effectively tackle those, from my point of view, is, the best way is to combine fraud and AML in together across the entire lifecycle journey. So, for example, pre-KYC, name screening, payment screening, ongoing monitoring, transaction monitoring, and all the way to regulatory reporting. So that you have a helicopter view across your entire customer lifecycle journey instead of going through the disconnected silo tools across the platform. That's one. Number two is around the data, right? So data is a key for us, for example. So you have to be able to gather and leverage thousands of data and signals across the AML and fraud services, and then combine it together with the AI and the ML insights to get the better accuracy. And the final one is around single API approach. So it's the best way that if the fraud team and the AML team together integrate through the one single API, and then seamlessly interact each other across the platform and across the team. That's the best way to tackle it as well. So for me, I would say that fraudsters are moving fast, so we need to move faster and smarter as well.
Always an issue, isn't it? I think you brought an important part there about putting your fraud and AML teams together. From an operator and a B2B large provider, Kristina, what are your thoughts on how you are able to support this area?
Well, actually, first of all, risk management and anti-fraud is a must, no matter you are an operator or a provider. Without these two tools, you cannot provide the proper service that you should. So in our platform and in all our products, we have a special risk management team, anti-fraud team, who are actually, of course, working 24/7 as all of us. Their job is much harder than ours. So take into consideration that we're not directly working with the end users. We're working in between. We are still building a relationship between the end users and us to understand how to deal with all the risky situations that may appear, how to create the perfect undefferred flow to follow all the rules, and how to use this gentleman's product and how to build the in-house one, surely.
Thank you very much. And moving on, therefore, Vishal, as a large provider in the sector used by a huge number of iGaming companies, what do you see about the links with fraud and AML? And I know you're coming from a very experienced AML side. Do you think it's evolved, and do you think that link is still there?
Definitely. Let me start by mentioning a stat. I was reading this report wherein it said in Southeast Asia itself, in 2024, the fraud losses in the gaming and gambling industry were between $18 to $37 million. Now that's a staggering number, right? Of course, these are the reported ones. So definitely whatever the industry is doing is not sufficient, right? And one of the possible outcomes of that could be the convergence of fraud and AML, right? Traditionally, operators have been looking at both of these areas separately, which of course creates some blind spots, right? However, by aligning AML and fraud strategies, operators can not only look at reducing their operational overhead, reducing fraud losses, but also help to maintain positive player experience as well, right? And that's what we do at Lexis as well, wherein we'll provide a common data and analytics infrastructure so as operators can onboard their trusted players more seamlessly without alarming any not so good customers per se.
And I think that's a lesson for everybody, that it's the way you implement it rather than not just a tool. Anybody can buy a tool, but if you don't implement it correctly, you're going to be in trouble. And Kristina, coming back to you, when we talk about, especially about VIP management and anti-fraud and risk, a lot of C-level commercial people are very worried that we do anything with them. They want to let them play. They want to have a lot of fun. They say, "Oh, we know these players; they're great." But when we start looking at it, we do have to still do a lot of risk management over it. Can you give me your experience?
Yes, certainly. The risk management of VIP players is a whole another story. So you cannot have the same limits, you cannot have the same margins, etc., for the VIP players as you have for the regular players. You should give them more freedom, but at the same time, you should keep your hand on the pulse, let's say like this, because they are depositing a lot, like huge amount of monies, and they can ask for a withdrawal directly. And if you do not approve, you can lose a VIP player. If an operator loses a VIP player, it's a huge story. So they ask for a special approach. They ask for more attentiveness than the usual player. They are taking a lot more resources. So on one VIP player, you can, put 3 times more resources for building his full customer journey, starting how he is logging into the system, ending how he can withdraw the money. Every single point is very important in there. But the money that any operator is getting from the VIP player is bringing the results. So better to focus on VIP player, better to focus on the risk management, deep detailed, than just let them go.
Interesting. And I think, try your cutting edge technology. Do you actually develop the technology specifically for different market segments, like VIPs, like traditional? And if you do, how do you actually implement that?
Absolutely. So, I can agree with what Kristina said, right? So we work a lot of the operators. So when it comes to the VIP and high-value player, it's another different story, right? So a few of the things that, the key things that matter most to operators in this sector is like user trust, profitability, and the regulatory compliance. So the first two are very intertwined to each other, and then goes very well with the VIP players. When it comes to VIP players, there's a few things that we really focus on. Number one is that we cannot ever let account takeover happen to them, right? Account hacking. So there's a way of doing in the behind the scene in terms of behavior profiling, intelligent profiling, a lot of the multi-defense approach. Then another one is more like operator cannot just accidentally or incorrectly block them, right? That's going to upset them and they can be moving over to another platform. So in that case, we need to look at a lot of the data points, another intelligent profiling, or instead of the blocking, so maybe probably apply there some light, phishing, like for example, liveness check, instead of asking them to, upload all the documents again. Then finally, so another topic that, come up a lot lately is more like how to stop the bad guys and the bots in illegitimately farming the loyalty points and claiming to become VIP status, right? This is another one thing as well. So we need to look at a lot of the data enrichment point plus behavior like email, IP, phone, device, and then all the console DM data, which is more like any fraud happening in the past. We have to combine everything and then we apply all those into, especially for the VIP players.
So you've basically got a high-level risk management score across all of the players throughout the lifetime cycle.
Absolutely. So, of course, being mindful of the time, I cannot go into details, but if any of you want to know more, just, approach me anytime. I'm just over there. Our booth is just next to it. So.
Thank you. And Vishal, on that, LexisNexis has got a huge amount of solutions in the market. Do you feel that those are tailored to specific markets or different segments, or is it both?
For our side, I think it's both. So the way we help, especially on the VIP side, right? So it's a balancing act, right? Because these VIP players, they deserve or expect a premium experience, a frictionless experience, right? But at the same time, they also pose more elevated risk to the operators. So we look at it in two points. One is we of course create this consortium wherein we use behavioral, transactional, as well as the device intelligence signal to help onboard those trusted players non-intrusively and promptly. And at the same time, we also create differentiated risk models for these VIP customers and players that help to only flag operators as and when there's a unusual activity or anomaly outside of their standard behavior, because they do pose fraud risk of credit fraud or money laundering as well. So there are differentiated risk models that we put in place for those customers as well as operators.
Great, thank you. And that's just making me think of something, Kristina, because SOFTSWISS are at the cutting edge of a lot of technology. They're always looking to make things better for their B2B customers, and within that, you've got a lot of best practice that you've developed over the years. And if you could give kind of one top tip in relation to like VIP management and risk management of them to the audience, so it doesn't matter who you work for or which market you're in, which is the kind of one thing you would just encourage them to think of.
So if just to highlight, let's say one very important thing is the communication, which is, from my point of view, is also a part of the risk management. Direct communication with the VIP player will solve all the issues, all the probable problems that may appear. Surely, direct communication with the player is not going through the software provider, but if you are a software provider, just try to convince your operators to be in touch with all of the VIP players, to understand all the pain points, to cover all the risk that you have. From the other side, from the provider point of view, we are selecting VIP players under another segment and on the different geolocations and analyzing them separately. We are not regrouping them. We are keeping them as an individual to look on their cases under the individual approach.
Okay. I think that's really good advice. I'm an ex-operator myself, worked for the N10 group for many years. And what we saw was that if you took a VIP segment and tried to apply risk models and tools, it really messed it up and you started turning players off. And what we always found was that the best thing to do was treat them as individuals. But, the technology wasn't there as easy as it is today to be able to treat people as individuals with communication, etc. As you know, everybody's got a smartphone now, everybody's probably playing on their smartphone, and we can get messages to them in real time, so that's great. And I think that brings us on to the point that everyone has to talk about, which is AI and how we're using it in the industry. Positives and negatives. We have seen a lot of AI pure tools come out. Most of them, unfortunately, have failed. I think when we've seen the operators work with the suppliers like yourselves, we've seen a much better end result. So, Troy, from an AI perspective, as an AI company that does quite a bit of this, what are the key learnings and what are your key points you'd like to get across about how to use AI?
Advanced technology like AI is a double-edged sword, right? So we have seen a lot of the wonders that it can help us to execute the tasks that require the smart brains in the past, but at the same time, it goes for the bad guys as well, right? So we see a lot of the AI fuel fraud tactics recently. So entry barriers are getting lower than ever now. So AI help the attackers to execute the sophisticated attacks, that previously requires a very deep technical knowledge. So another one is the synthetic identities. So those identities are getting harder to detect because they blend nicely with the fake data versus the real data. Then also another one is the bot attacks, right? It's in terms of the bot attacks, we used to see a lot of the brute force and the volume base. Now we see the shift more into precision attacks. So those bots are very smart in terms of mimicking and simulating the human-like behaviors to bypass the traditional bot detection system as well. So we see a lot of those helping the bad guys to be able to execute more. But on the plus side as well, right? Because AI help us to be able to execute a lot of the tasks that require big resources and the time in the past with the relatively lesser in terms of resources, plus also making more efficient. So for example, I talk about IP, email, behavior analysis, consortium data to check all those VIP players, even for the normal players previously. So just imagine using the manual reviews and the human resource to execute all those things. It's not going to be possible. But with the help of the AI and the machine learning insights, we are able to execute those nicely. So I will say that I'm not saying that AI and ML will be able to execute by themselves, but with the combination of technology plus the enriched data, like digital footprints, which is very important, then with the human oversight, that's an effective way to moving forward and tackle risk and fraud management as well.
Great, and the takeaway from that is data linked to AI. I love that. Kristina, from your point of view, how do you link the AI in with all the huge amount of data that you've got?
Well, first of all, we should understand that AI is not only a magic button. So there should be humans who will work, who should know how to work within the AI using the ML, as it has been mentioned. Surely we're also using some AI tools to get the whole flow more easy for our operators. And one of the main points that, let's say right now, is important to develop is to, as mentioned, to decrease the human resources on some automatic work and leave it to the AI to do all the automatic work. If I give you an example, let's say, on the Sportsbook side, we're regrouping all the players. We're giving them separately, as per group, as per segment, we're giving them custom promotions, custom features, campaign, etc. So imagine if everything works with AI. You don't need to create a new feature for X group or X segment. AI will analyze the whole player behavior and will give you, your players, automatically the promotion which will help them, which will reactivate them, or which will increase the retention of the player. So this is just to open a bit of a secret on what we are now working on SOFTSWISS Sportsbook product. And in the near future, we will use both the AI through the ML to provide that automatic system to our operators.
Thank you. And Vishal, from your point of view, again, some of your products are more advanced than others. And where do you see it going with the market for AI? Is it something you're really focused on? And more importantly, is it something you're asked for?
I think everyone is talking about AI now. Our take on it is slightly different. So no two players, whether it's a normal or a VIP player, are same, right? So every player has his or her own unique profile, especially in the digital world, a digital profile with their digital footprint that they leave on the digital world. And I think AI is revolutionizing that aspect of the risk management from an AML and fraud standpoint, wherein AI helps create a custom risk profile of different players for the operators. However, even though it is acting as an enabler for safer onboarding as well as a smooth user experience, but there are still challenges when it comes to using AI, because mostly it's a black or a gray box, especially when it talks about the model transparency and compliance, we have seen that from a regulatory lens, regulators around the world are asking operators and organizations alike on why they took a particular decision, right? When it comes to AI, it also has to be explainable and responsible use of AI. And I think that's where the organizations are moving towards, especially if you talk about Lexis, when we provide those X component within AI, which is the explainable AI part, that help operators justify why they took a particular decision, whether to continue with that user or not.
Great, thank you. We've got loads of great questions in, so we're going to jump into them. Kristina, you know I'm going to ask you the second one, because it really is up your street. But do you have how are you using fraud detection? That's the data side of it to personalize the risk scores. And I love the second part, without slowing down legit high-value players. What is the key to doing that?
The key is to do it individually, not for the whole group. So whenever you are like in the fraud detection, whenever you see fraud, what you do first in Sportsbook, you put the limit. You should not put the limit on all the event or on the market. You put the limit on the player. That's it. So you are not putting any limitation on the high-value players. You are just preventing the fraud which has been caused for one or two players, and you are not affecting the whole market or event.
Great, that's very succinct. Thank you very much. And Troy, I'm going to give you the AI-generated deepfakes and synthetic IDs. It's quite frightening. I myself was doing a course actually the other day, and I entered some deepfakes into it. Didn't get picked up at all. As a cutting-edge tool, the AI people who are trying to create fraud are probably moving faster than we can move to prevent it. So what will be your front line of defense?
I mean, absolutely. I'm not going to say that any vendor or solutions out there can 100% detect those, right? So because of the AI and everything. But the way that we approach is more like, just now I mentioned about the entire user journey across the platform. So we start with the pre-KYC. So even before you generate or go into the KYC and the AML check, which is more costly for most of the operators here, we just start with the pre-KYC in terms of enriching the data together. We check across the consortium data plus our own proprietary data. I'm just talking about as a SEON. So that's how we provide the scoring plus also the risk level before we actually decide to go into the KYC. And then after that, the next step is once they pass the stage, then we will go into more like IDV and liveness check and kind of synthetic ID approach as well. So for me, I would say that the first line of defense, just start with your own digital footprint and the pre-KYC check.
Okay, and Vishal, innovative fraud prevention, right? You've got lots of tools out there. Can you give an example where an operator or somebody in the industry has implemented one of your tools and it's benefited user experience, or is it implementing the tools benefits user experience?
I think our customers would be more apt to share this, but I'll take an example, right? So every year as an organization, we do a study called True Cost of Fraud, and we see what's the impact of the fraudulent activities. And within Philippines itself, we have seen that over 40% of the users, they abandon the ID verification part if it's taking over 2 minutes, right? Now, because they have different platforms, different gambling apps to move to, right? They are getting more impatient. So for operators, there's a fine line between friction as well as allowing them to get into the system. If they are providing more friction and, of course, more risk, that means the player will move on to the next one. If they loosen their risk appetite, then they are opening up for more risk. So I think there's the fine line that operators need to look at.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to user experience. And the last question in heavy VIP markets, how do you balance the bonus, the aggressive bonusing to get people, especially in a fast-growing market. The Philippines going 157% year on year. How do you do it without alienating genuine? And literally 10 seconds from each of you of how do you not alienate your VIPs? Do you want to start with Troy?
Yeah, I think I can just chime in a bit, right? So just like I mentioned, we start with the personal profiling. So you need to be able to profile, intelligent profiling, personal profiling, to understand the device configuration, geolocation, anything out of the order. Of course, we raise a reflex around that. So before going into the next stage of the, for this one. But VIP player, high roller, they are the different story. So you need to be able to tread very closely or very carefully in terms of balancing it as well. But for us, is that we look at data enrichment plus behavior analysis. Those are the two keys that we look into.
Kristina?
Actually, the start is the same way, like the customer profiling. And then you look into, we have no time, but and then we look into the customer behavior. That's the most important part.
Vishal, anything to add?
I think 3 points. One is segmenting customers, the customer risk profile. Then the second and third, which are data and technology. So combining their digital footprint as well as their behavior patterns.
Thank you very much to the panel for all the effort put into today, and thank you very much to Sigma for putting this on and Fast Track for sponsoring. Thank you everyone for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Paul, and your panel guests.